What would you do if one sentence turned your entire career into a public execution? I stood before anyone else could fill the silence. I need to take responsibility for something. My voice stayed level. I made a serious mistake. If it costs the company money, I'm prepared to make it right. The room froze, not in confusion, but in expectation. At the head of the table, Celeste Vaughn finally looked up. How much money are we talking about? Mia, a significant amount, I replied. Enough that I wanted to say it out loud before rumors did. A chair scraped. Someone inhaled. No one asked what happened. Celeste's mouth curved. Barely. So you're admitting fault. I'm admitting responsibility. That distinction doesn't matter here. She turned without looking at me. Human resources document this. Now. My stomach tightened. Celeste leaned forward, elbows light on the table. Do you know how much damage people like you cause when you're careless? People like you. I'm willing to cover the loss personally, I said. If that's what accountability requires. Her eyes sharpened. Good. Then we'll suspend your access while we assess how deep this goes. She didn't wait. Lock her out. A soft chime rippled across the table as my access disappeared in real time. Someone glanced at their phone. Someone else stared at the screen, and then away. This meeting is about accountability, Celeste continued. And accountability starts with consequences. The display shifted. A disciplinary template appeared, my name already typed in. Fields already filled. Prepared, polished, waiting. I lowered myself back into my chair. My hands didn't shake. That was important, too, because in that moment, I understood something with painful clarity. This wasn't a reaction. It was a plan. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. Each story explores power, perception, and the moments when people reveal who they are once they believe no one important is watching. The meeting moved on without me. Voices blurred into policy language and deadlines. I watched colleagues avoid my eyes, watched the way fear reorganized the room. I had offered them a mistake. They had been ready with a sentence. How fast can a workplace turn its back on you when you look weak? Human resources called within 10 minutes. The room was small, intentionally neutral. Mina Park sat across from me with a folder already open. She didn't offer a greeting. She slid the papers forward instead. This is a voluntary responsibility acknowledgement, she said. Standard procedure. I scanned the first page, my name, today's date. Language that sounded cooperative until it wasn't. And this, I tapped the second document. A confidentiality agreement. Mina replied. It protects everyone. Everyone, I repeated. Except me. Her mouth tightened. This is the practical route. Mia. Signing shows maturity. I haven't seen an investigation, I said. I haven't been asked what happened. Mina folded her hands. We're being realistic. Escalation helps no one. People like you. The words implied, even if she didn't say them out loud. If I don't sign, I asked. She exhaled softly. Then legal steps in. That changes the tone. Records follow you. The threat sat between us, calm and polished. I pushed the folder back. I need time. Mina's eyes flicked to the door. Time makes things worse. Outside, the office felt different. Conversations cut off when I approached. Smiles didn't reach eyes. One by one. People looked away. At my desk, my inbox was empty. Not quiet empty. A message from the team channel failed to load. Another notification blinked and vanished. I turned to Jonas, who sat 2 seats down. Did something happen to the project chat? He didn't look up. They're reorganizing communication, I said. He nodded once, already opening another window. It's temporary. By noon. The silence was complete. No calendar invites, no questions, no follow-ups, only the low hum of keyboards and the careful distance people kept from my chair. In the afternoon, Celeste passed by with 2 managers. She didn't stop. She didn't slow. She spoke just loud enough to carry Horit. Accountability matters, she said. Some people don't understand consequences until they face them. No one disagreed. I watched the room recalibrate, fear replacing familiarity, survival replacing curiosity. Not one person asked what had actually happened. Not one person asked if the mistake was real. By the time I packed up to leave, the pattern was unmistakable. Kindness hadn't disappeared. It had been withdrawn. Why do people become braver when they think you have nothing to lose? I learned that answer the hard way. I'd always been easy to overlook. I dressed simply. I didn't talk about my weekends. I never pushed my chair back too hard in meetings or fought for airtime. People describe me as solid, reliable, low maintenance, the kind of employee no one worried about and no one protected. That morning, I stopped outside the glass conference room when I heard my name. "She doesn't have leverage anyway," a senior manager said, his voice casual. "This will blow over once she signs." Another voice followed, quieter but sharper. "People like her always sign." I kept standing there. Neither of them noticed. Later, Celeste called a short check-in with department heads. I was invited in name only. She didn't look at me once. "We're tightening standards," she said, tapping her pen lightly. "Some roles require a certain caliber. Not everyone is built for pressure." A few people nodded. Someone glanced at me and then away. Celeste continued, calm and precise. "This isn't personal, it's about alignment." Alignment, another word that sounded harmless until it wasn't. After the meeting, I crossed paths with Evan from operations. We'd worked side by side for years. "This is rough," he muttered. "But leadership has to draw lines. Lines around what I asked." He shifted his weight, risk, exposure, and I'm the risk, I said. Evan didn't answer. He checked his watch instead. I should get back. That was the pattern. No raised voices. No slammed doors. Just quiet agreements made without me in the room. I'd seen this before. Different company, different title, same playbook. A leader arrives promising order, finds the quiet one, decides silence means consent. I returned to my desk and opened a blank document. Not to explain myself, but to take notes. If this was how power behaved when it thought no one important was watching, then what came next was inevitable. Who betrays you first when survival is on the line? Jonas didn't expect me to sit down. I closed the chair across from him and waited until he looked up. His eyes flicked to the hallway, then back to his screen. "You're not supposed to be here," he murmured. "I know," I replied. "That's why I'm asking you directly." He leaned back slightly, guarded. "About what, the email?" I said. "The one that made this look deliberate." Jonas laughed once, too quickly. "Mia, you're reading into things. I'm not," I answered. "I saw the metadata before my access was cut." That did it. His smile slipped. "You forwarded it?" I continued. "Not accidentally, not as part of a review." "You sent it upstream." He rubbed his hands together, buying time. I was asked to clarify the timeline. "Clarify," I echoed. By attaching my name, his voice dropped. "You don't understand the pressure. I understand exactly." I said, "You had a choice." Jonas finally met my eyes. I couldn't afford to be on the wrong side. The words landed harder than I expected. "I pulled you into this team," I said quietly. "I covered for you when you missed deadlines. I told them you were ready when you weren't." "I know," he replied. "And I'm grateful, but gratitude doesn't pay rent, so you let them frame me." He flinched. "They already decided, and you helped," I said. "That's different." Jonas exhaled, defeated. I stayed quiet because I thought it would pass. "Silence is still a choice," I replied. A beat passed, then another. "I'm sorry," he offered, too late and too softly. I stood. "Don't be." As I turned to leave, he spoke again. "They're using you as an example." "I noticed," I said, walking away. The hurt settled in slowly, not because he chose himself, but because he had convinced himself there was no other option. That was the lesson. No one had to push him. He stepped aside willingly. What if the mistake was never the point? I stopped trying to correct the record the moment I understood that accuracy didn't interest them. Character did. And that was the test I had set quietly, deliberately, before Celeste ever took her seat at the head of the table. I wasn't looking for brilliance. I wasn't even looking for fairness. I wanted to see how power behaved when it thought it was safe to be ugly. That afternoon, I listened. A junior analyst lingered near the doorway, clutching a notepad. I followed the process. She said to a manager, "I just need clarification." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "If you're unsure," he replied, "maybe you're not ready for this level of responsibility." She nodded, apologetic, and stepped back. In the hallway, Celeste passed a cluster of assistants. "We can't afford hesitation right now," she said lightly. "Mistakes come from people who don't understand consequences." One assistant whispered. She means Mia, and the others went quiet. Later, Human Resources called a coordinator into a side room. The door stayed ajar. This is a sensitive moment, Mina said. We need cooperation. Don't complicate things. I just had a question about the form, the coordinator replied. Questions slow us down, Mina said. Be practical. I took notes, not names patterns. Fear moved faster than facts. Intimidation wore professional language. Scapegoats were chosen early so decisions could feel decisive. By the end of the day, the story had settled without evidence. I was the example. Everyone else was learning how to survive. Jonas avoided my desk entirely. Evan walked past without a word. A new hire glanced at me, then quickly at the floor. I closed my laptop and leaned back, calm in a way that surprised me. They were telling me everything I needed to know, not with explanations. With behavior, and once you see a pattern clearly, you stop hoping someone else will interrupt it. What do you do when a room is designed to make you surrender? The invitation went out to the entire department before I received mine. Mandatory disciplinary review. Attendance required. By the time I walked in, the narrative was already set. Chairs filled quickly. Conversations stopped when I took a seat. No one sat beside me. Celeste entered last. She didn't look at the room. She looked at me. This meeting is about closure, she said, her tone smooth, not blame. Mina from Human Resources placed a folder in front of me, thicker than the last one. Final acknowledgement, she said quietly. Once this is signed, we can move forward. Forward for who, I asked. Mina's expression didn't change. For the company. Celeste folded her hands. We need to show decisiveness. People are watching. A manager near the screen cleared his throat. Mistakes like this create instability. Addressing them publicly restores confidence. Confidence built on one person. I opened the folder. My name, the same language, stronger consequences, permanent notes in my record. I'm being used as an example, I said. Celeste nodded once. Examples help teams learn what I asked. That silence keeps you safe. The room stayed still. Mina leaned closer. If you sign, we avoid escalation. Escalation into what I asked. Her voice lowered. Legal involvement, long-term implications. Celeste cut in. This isn't personal. Mia, this is resolution. I closed the folder. This isn't resolution, I said. It's control. A ripple moved through the room. Someone shifted in their chair. Celeste's smile tightened. Careful. With what I asked. Telling the truth, she held my gaze. With your future, I sat back. Steady. The documents, the silence, the pressure. It all pointed in one direction. They didn't want answers. They wanted compliance. And I understood then that the ending they had written for me only worked if I agreed to read my lines. What's the one sentence that can stop a public takedown cold? Mina slid the folder back toward me. We're ready to proceed. I didn't touch it. Celeste watched, patient in the way people get when they think time is on their side. This is your last opportunity to close this cleanly. I'm not signing, I said. A murmur rippled through the room. Someone whispered my name like a warning. Mina leaned in. Refusal escalates consequences. I know, I replied. That's why I'm choosing it. Celeste's smile thinned. Then you're leaving us no choice. I nodded once. I'm invoking my right under the company charter. The words landed softly. The effect wasn't. Celeste blinked. Explain. I'm requesting an immediate pause on disciplinary action, I said, keeping my voice even. Pending review by the board. That's not how this works, Mina said. It is, I replied. Section 9. Emergency Governance Protections. A manager near the screen shifted. That clause is for shareholders. I know, Celeste laughed. Quick and dismissive. Mia, this isn't the time for theatrics. I agree, I said. That's why I'll keep it brief. I met her eyes. I'm a founding shareholder. Silence fell in a way I'd never heard before. Not tense, not awkward, empty. Celeste's posture changed first. That's not possible. It's documented, I said, issued at incorporation. I've never disclosed it internally. Mina's hand tightened on the folder. Why wouldn't we know this? You didn't ask, I replied. You assumed. A few people looked down. Others stared at me openly now, recalculating. Celeste stood. We'll take a recess. No, I said. You'll halt this process. Her jaw set. You don't give orders here. I do when procedure is being abused, I said. And when people are being coerced, the room felt different. Chairs straightened, pens paused midair. Authority doesn't announce itself, it's recognized. Celeste exhaled slowly. "We'll consult legal, please do," I said. As the meeting dissolved into hurried whispers, I remained seated, calm and unmistakably present. Nothing about me had changed, only what they finally understood. What do people say when they realize they misjudged you? Celeste found me before legal did. "Mia," she said, "softer now. Can we talk privately?" I didn't move. "Say it here." Her eyes flicked to the managers still hovering near the door. "This doesn't need an audience. It already had one," I replied. She drew a careful breath. "There's been a misunderstanding. A lot happened very fast. Things only move fast when no one is asking questions," I said. Celeste stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I didn't know about your shareholder status. If I had, you would have behaved differently," I finished. "That's the point." Her mouth tightened. "I would have handled it more appropriately." Appropriate for who, I asked. She tried another angle. "I'm willing to reset this. We can revisit your role, title. Compensation, negotiation requires trust," I said. "You spent yours." Mina joined us, pale. "The board has been notified." "Good," I replied. "So has compliance." Celeste straightened. "An audit over one incident is excessive." "This isn't about one incident," I said. "It's about how you create obedience." She scoffed. "I run a company, not a support group." "You run fear like a system," I said. "That's why the evidence isn't financial." Mina looked at me. "Then what is it, language?" I said. "Done pressure. Threats disguised as process. Documents pushed before questions are answered." Celeste's voice hardened. "You're overreaching, I'm documenting," I replied. "There's a difference." A phone buzzed. Mina glanced down, then back up. "Legal wants statements from everyone present." Celeste's confidence cracked just enough. "Mia, this can still be handled internally." I shook my head. "Accountability doesn't hide." She stared at me, searching for leverage that wasn't there anymore. "You're making this personal." "No," I said. "I'm making it permanent." When they stepped away to take the call, I remained where I was, hands steady, posture unchanged. Power doesn't disappear when challenged. It shows its shape. What does accountability look like when no one is spared? The notice arrived before noon. Mina stood in my doorway, holding her tablet with both hands. "The board voted," she said. "Celeste is being removed for abuse of authority. No qualifiers, no soft language." "And the rest?" I asked. "Disciplinary actions," she replied. "Documented coercion, improper pressure, mandatory retraining for managers, terminations where warranted." I nodded once. Jonas didn't come to me. He didn't need to. His reassignment memo circulated quietly. No announcement, no explanation. His new role sat 2 levels lower, stripped of decision rights. The silence around his name was the penalty. Evan stopped by later. He hovered, unsure. I wanted to say, I should have spoken up. "I know," I said. He waited for more. There wasn't any. Compliance scheduled interviews. Legal requested timelines. I answered questions with dates and quotes, not opinions. When asked what outcome I wanted, I kept it simple. "Protections," I said. "Written, enforced." A week later, Mina returned with drafts. "We added a cooling period," she said. "No disciplinary documents before an investigation. No personal liability language without counsel present." "Add an employee advocate," I said. "Independent, assigned automatically." She typed. "Done." I didn't celebrate. I didn't linger in hallways to watch faces change. When colleagues thanked me, I redirected them to the policy links. "This isn't about me," I said. "It's about what happens next time." At the final review, a board member spoke carefully. "You could take a larger role." "I won't," I replied. "Why not?" "Because fixing a system doesn't require running it," I said. "It requires boundaries." I signed the last document and stood. The room felt lighter, not because justice is loud, but because it's precise. I left with a folder under my arm and a plan already in motion, standards, written clearly enough that fear wouldn't have room to hide. What if the real test was never about money or mistakes? I didn't announce my departure. I simply stopped showing up to the meetings that had once demanded my silence. When the interim chief operating officer asked if I planned to return to daily operations, I shook my head. "I'm keeping my shareholder role," I said. "I'm not staying in the building." He looked relieved and disappointed at the same time. You could shape the culture from the inside. I already did, I replied. Now it needs space to breathe. I cleared my desk without ceremony. Jonas passed by once, eyes down, carrying a box that was smaller than it used to be. He paused as if he might speak. Then he didn't. That was fine. We had already said everything that mattered. Outside the company, work came easily. People called with ideas, not pitches questions. I chose one and said yes. A small venture, clear roles, written protections, no private rooms where pressure could hide. In the first team meeting, a junior analyst asked, "What happens if someone makes a mistake?" "We investigate," I said. "We don't punish first." Another voice followed. "And if the person is junior, especially then," I said. "Power doesn't get to be lazy." Weeks later, a former colleague stopped by. "You never told us who you were," she said, not accusing, curious. I wasn't testing competence. I told her I was testing character. She nodded slowly. That explains a lot. I kept my stake in the old company and used it the way it was meant to be used: oversight, not control. Policies stayed. Advocates were assigned. Documents changed language, quietly, permanently. I never pretended to be weak to be pitied. I stayed quiet to listen. I wanted to know who would reach for power the moment they thought no one important was watching. I took with me and built into every decision after authority reveals itself in small moments. The way a leader speaks when they think you can't push back. The way a system treats people who look ordinary. If respect only appears when fear does, it was never respect. It was compliance. I didn't leave angry. I left clear, and clarity, once earned, is something no one gets to take from you. The year-end executive workshop had barely begun when I was redirected before I could even speak. Catering staff this way. The man did not hesitate. His arm lifted, palm open, already turning his body as if I had complied. The corridor he pointed to was narrow, quiet, efficient, designed for people meant to pass through unnoticed. "I'm here for the workshop." My voice stayed level. My name followed. Amelia Hartwell. He looked once quick, dismissive, then past me, toward the line forming behind. Kitchen entrance is around the corner. A woman stepped closer, her badge swinging against her blazer. She did not bother lowering her voice enough. "Keep that cleaning lady away from the VIPs. The words settled in the space between us. Not staff, not guest. Cleaning lady. Something to be managed, removed, hidden, for a moment. My fingers tightened around the invitation folded in my bag. One sentence would have changed everything. One correction would have forced apologies, smiles, embarrassment dressed up as courtesy. Instead, I watched her slide a temporary badge toward me. "Put this on," she said, "and don't wander." The plastic felt thin in my hand. "Thank you." Neither of them responded. Someone behind me sighed impatiently. Another laughed under their breath. The line moved forward. I stepped sideways, clipped the badge to my coat, and walked exactly where I had been told. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. While the characters and events are imagined, the emotions reflect real experiences of being dismissed, underestimated, and judged before being heard. Each story carries its own message, its own reckoning, and its own truth. The doors swung closed behind me, the noise changed, laughter loosened, voices dropped their filters. If we move fast, no one will question it. Legal will smooth it over. Confidence traveled easily when it believed itself unobserved. I slowed my steps, letting the badge settle against my chest. People passed without looking at my face. No one asked my name, no one cared where I was going. That was fine. I had not come to be recognized. Not yet. I came to listen. Why stay silent when one sentence could end the humiliation? Because I had learned what comes next when power is revealed too early. Apologies. Smiles stretched tight. Explanations that sounded generous and meant nothing. People fixed their tone, not their behavior. They reset the moment without paying for it. I walked into the service corridor by choice. A man in a black polo passed me, balancing a tray. "You're late," he muttered. "Already moving on." "Noted," I replied. He glanced back, surprised by the calm, then shrugged. "They're already pouring. I won't slow anyone down." That was true. I never did. Voices leaked through the doors ahead, unfiltered now, careless. The kind of confidence that only shows itself when it believes it has an audience beneath it. They won't push back, a man said. They never do. Another voice laughed. Legacy staff always think they're untouchable. A pause. Paper rustled. Someone lowered their voice anyway. Did legal sign off? They'll catch up, the first voice answered. We're not waiting. I stopped near a cart stacked with empty glasses. No one noticed. No one needed to. I listened the way I had learned to listen years ago without reacting, without taking notes, without letting my face give anything away. A woman brushed past me and said, "Don't block the door." "I won't," I said. Stepping aside, she nodded, satisfied. Authority likes compliance. It rarely checks competence. Inside my bag. My phone vibrated once. I ignored it. This was not the moment to interrupt the rhythm of people speaking freely. This was the moment to let them finish their thoughts. Someone else spoke. Sharper now. If it goes wrong, we reverse it later. Silence followed. Not agreement. Relief. I exhaled slowly and clipped the badge more securely to my coat. The plastic pressed flat against my chest. Anonymous and effective. Silence was not weakness. Silence was leverage. And as the voices continued looser, louder, more certain, I understood something they did not. When people believe no one important is listening, they tell you exactly who they are. What if the real danger isn't being insulted but what you overhear next? The voices grew louder as I moved closer to the service station. No one lowered them anymore. No one bothered to check who was within earshot. They've been coasting for years, a man said. Legacy staff, comfortable, expensive. Another voice cut in, sharper. Then we stopped paying for comfort. That many terminations in 1 quarter, someone asked. A pause. Compliance will push back. They always do. The first voice replied. And they always lose. Paper slid across a counter. I heard the dry scrape of a pen. We'll clean it up after, the new voice said. Confident, young. The kind of confidence that assumes cleanup is automatic. Sign now, we announce tomorrow. A woman laughed. You're moving fast. Speed is the point, he said. If they don't have time to complain, they don't have time to stop us. I stayed still, invisible, useful. Legal flagged the vendor exit. Another man offered. There's exposure. Minimal, the VP said. And temporary. Temporary. That word again. It always showed up right before depositions. A cart rolled past me. Glass clinked. No one noticed when I stepped closer. What about the pension group, someone asked. They're protected. Not if we restructure, the VP replied. Different entity, different obligations. Silence followed. Then approval disguised as relief. That's aggressive, the woman said. That's leadership, he answered. I recognized the cadence, the shortcuts, the certainty that rules existed for other people. I had heard this language before, years ago, in rooms where no one thought consequences had teeth. A phone chimed. Someone laughed again. The mood lifted. Send it to the board later, the VP said. Once the dust settles, the pen scratched once more. I took a slow breath and shifted the badge on my coat. This was no longer about being dismissed at the door. This was about decisions made in confidence, signed in haste, and defended with arrogance. I stepped back into the corridor, unseen. They were not just talking anymore. They were committing. What if the success they're bragging about exists because of you? The new VP's voice carried easily through the corridor. Energized now, almost celebratory. This is the project that put us ahead of everyone else, he said. The board wanted growth. I delivered it. Someone whistled softly. That fast. He laughed. You don't wait for perfect conditions. You create momentum. I stopped walking. The margins alone justify it. He continued. Year 1 was risky, sure. But once the infrastructure was in place, it paid for itself. A man nearby added. No one else would have approved that kind of upfront exposure. The VP didn't hesitate. That's the difference between old leadership and new. I leaned lightly against the wall, unseen. Every number he mentioned landed cleanly in my head. The capital structure, the phased rollout. The approvals spaced just far enough apart to keep regulators calm. I had signed those approvals, not in this building, not in a meeting like this. 10 years earlier, in a quiet office with outdated furniture and a trustee who asked the same question 3 times to be sure. Are you comfortable with the risk, Ms. Hartwell? Yes. That is a significant allocation. It's necessary. And if it fails, then it fails honestly. The trust documents had been finalized 2 days later. No press release, no credit. Just a line item that allowed the company to expand when it could not afford to hesitate. Back in the corridor, the VP kept talking. The best part, he said. Everyone thinks it was inevitable. Laughter followed, agreement, admiration. I adjusted the strap of my bag. I had never needed inevitability. I had needed outcome. That project was not luck. It was patience, timing, and a decision made without applause. A woman asked. Who pushed it through originally? The VP waved the question away. Ancient history. Ancient, apparently, meant inconvenient. I stepped back from the wall as the group moved on. Their confidence intact, their narrative settled. They stood on something solid, something tested. They just didn't know who had poured the foundation. And they were very comfortable dancing on it. When does silence stop being patience and become complicity? The signature landed with a dull tap, followed by the scrape of paper pulled free. That clears the backlog, the new VP said, effective immediately. A chair shifted. All of them, he replied. We announce before end of day. Another voice cut in, cautious. Those roles are protected under the shareholder agreement. He smiled at that. I could hear it. Protected doesn't mean permanent. Legal flagged it. Someone said, there's a cooling period. Cooling periods are suggestions. He answered. Momentum doesn't wait. Pages turned. A second pen followed the first. And the vendor contracts, a woman asked. 2 of those are tied to regulatory filings. Cancel, he said. We restructure under a different entity. A pause. The kind that meant someone knew better. That triggers disclosure, the woman added. Within 90 days. We'll handle disclosure, he said. After. The word that made problems invisible until they weren't. I stepped closer to the service counter. No one looked up. Human resources needs sign-off. A man offered, trying once more. Already done, the VP replied. I'm not asking for permission. Another pause, shorter this time. Agreement arrived disguised as efficiency. Send it, someone said. I'll send it. The VP corrected. Now, the room exhaled. Decisions settled. Careers shifted without faces attached. I felt the moment turn inside me, not sharp, not angry, but final. This was not bravado. This was damage dressed as confidence. A line crossed with a steady hand and a borrowed pen. My phone vibrated again in my bag. I took it out this time. The message was brief, routine, waiting. I looked at the closed door, at the voices moving on to their next topic, already congratulating themselves. Good work, someone said. About time. Another agreed. I typed slowly, carefully. No commentary, no emotion. Attachments added. Timestamps intact. I did not send it yet, but I knew I would. Silence had done its job. It had shown me exactly where the fault lines were. And now that I could see them clearly, standing aside was no longer restraint. It was endorsement. I put the phone away, straightened the badge on my coat, and stepped back into the corridor, already measuring the distance between decision and consequence. What's the quietest action that can change everything? I stepped into an empty alcove and opened my phone. No shaking, no second thoughts. The subject line appeared first. Request for emergency review. I attached the files one by one. The termination list, signed and time-stamped. The vendor cancellations, cross-referenced against the shareholder agreement. The compliance flags marked ignored, clean, complete, nothing dramatic. Just facts assembled in the order they insisted on being seen. A name popped up at the top of the thread, then another. People who never replied unless the matter was already serious. A message came in before I finished typing. Are you sure from legal? I answered with a single sentence. Yes. Please review the attachments. Another notification followed, faster this time. When were these executed this morning? I said quietly to no one, then typed the same. Within the last 2 hours, the typing bubble appeared, disappeared, reappeared, understood, looping in compliance and audit. I added no commentary. Commentary invited negotiation. I pressed send. The screen went still. Behind the door, the voices shifted. Lighter now. A joke landed. Someone clapped once. Good call, the VP said. We'll deal with fallout later. Later had just arrived. My phone vibrated again. A new thread. Short, formal, emergency review scheduled. All related authority temporarily paused pending assessment. Paused. Not reversed. Not announced. Paused. I slipped the phone back into my bag and straightened my coat. The badge caught the light as I moved. Still anonymous. Still unremarkable. A man passed me and nodded. Everything good back here? Yes, I said. Everything's in motion. He smiled and kept walking. The system had been engaged. No voices raised, no doors slammed. Just a sequence set in place that did not require my presence to continue. I stepped away from the alcove and rejoined the corridor, aware of the shift I could not yet see but could already feel. Power did not need to announce itself to take effect. It only needed to be activated. What if the room goes silent because of one name? The emergency meeting convened faster than anyone expected. Chairs scraped, screens flickered on. The new VP stood at the head of the table, jacket buttoned, voice steady. "Thank you for joining on short notice," he began. "We'll keep this efficient." A few nods followed. His assistant slid into a seat along the wall, tablet clutched tight. She did not look at me. The chair cleared his throat. "Before we proceed, one of our shareholders has a question." The VP smiled without turning. "Of course." A pause, not dramatic, precise. Amelia Hartwell. The name traveled slowly, like sound through water. One person looked up, another blinked, a third reached for a folder. Already too late. The assistant's face drained. She stared at the screen, then at me, then away. The VP turned. His breath hitched once before he masked it. "I'm sorry," who I stood. No rush, no announcement. "Present," I said. Silence thickened. Someone whispered my name again, softer, confirming it for themselves. A director leaned back, eyes narrowing in recognition. The chair nodded to me, "Ms. Hartwell." I did not mention the kitchen. I did not repeat a single word I had heard earlier. I opened my folder. "These decisions were executed this morning," I said, without required review. The VP cut in. "Those were operational. Please don't interrupt." The chair said gently. I continued. "The termination list violates existing protections. The vendor cancellations triggered disclosure obligations within 90 days. Authority was exceeded." The VP swallowed. "We can revise." Legal spoke for the first time. Authority has already been paused. The assistant's tablet slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. The chair folded his hands. "We'll hear from compliance." I closed my folder and sat. The room did not erupt. It recalibrated. Titles shifted. Assumptions collapsed quietly, one by one. I felt it settle, not triumph, not relief, just alignment. The meeting moved on without him leading it. What's more frightening, being yelled at or being audited? I did not raise my voice. I did not look at him when I spoke. "These are the decisions executed this morning," I said, sliding the pages forward. "Please confirm the approval sequence." The VP adjusted his tie. "Operational authority allows legal interrupted. Please answer the question." He glanced at the documents. They were approved under expedited review. By whom, I asked. He hesitated. By my office. Compliance leaned in. Expedited review still requires secondary sign-off. That was pending. He said, "We intended to. Intention is not authorization," legal said, flatly. I turned a page. "These vendor cancellations restructure obligations under a separate entity. Please identify the disclosure plan." The VP's jaw tightened. Disclosure would occur after stabilization. Define stabilization. Compliance said. Silence stretched. "Not long enough. Within the quarter," he offered. Legal shook his head. "The requirement is within 90 days of execution." The VP opened his mouth, then closed it. "We can reverse." "The authority to reverse has been paused," the chair said. As of this morning, the assistant sat rigid, hands folded, eyes fixed on the table. I continued, measured. "Human resources executed terminations covered by shareholder protections. Please confirm the exemption cited." He flipped through his notes too quickly. "Those protections apply to legacy roles. They apply to named roles." Compliance replied, "The list includes 3. Legal looked up. "That triggers investigation." The chair nodded once. "Authority is frozen pending review. Decisions executed today are reversed. Audit opens immediately." No one argued. No one needed to. I closed my folder and sat back. The room moved on, procedural and precise. Titles rearranged themselves without ceremony. The VP remained seated, present but removed. listening as others took over the agenda he had planned to lead. There was no anger in the room, no raised voices, no spectacle, only process. And process, when it finally arrives, has a way of lasting longer than any outburst ever could. Do you need to stay and watch a collapse to know you won? I stood while the next agenda item was still loading on the screen. Ms. Hartwell, the chair said, surprised. I've said what I needed to say. No one asked me to stay. No one tried to stop me. The VP did not look up. His assistant stared straight ahead, hands locked together. As I reached the door, someone behind me murmured, "We'll follow up. I'm sure you will," I replied, without turning. In the hallway, my phone buzzed once. Legal. "We'll send the documentation," I typed back. "Please do." That was it. No apology followed. None was owed. And none would have meant anything. Apologies fix moments. Structures fix outcomes. 3 days later, I sat across from my attorney in a quiet office. "You're certain?" she asked. "Yes." She slid the papers toward me. "This converts your holdings into a voting trust. You relinquish day-to-day discretion. I retain safeguards. You retain veto power under defined conditions." "Exactly." She nodded. "It will prevent unilateral decisions like the ones we reviewed. That's the point." She signed. I signed? The ink dried without ceremony. Later that week, a call came from the interim lead. "We've stabilized operations," he said. "Audit is ongoing. Good. We'd like your guidance moving forward." "You have it," I said. "Follow the rules you already agreed to." A pause. Respect settled into the line where fear had been earlier. When I returned to the building for the first time since the meeting, no one mistook me for staff. No one pointed. No one whispered. They opened doors instead. I nodded and kept walking. Power, I had learned, does not announce itself when it is secure. It does not linger to be admired. It sets its terms and steps away. I left early again that day. The work continued without me. And for the first time in a long while, that felt exactly right. What if the real lesson isn't about respect but about assumptions? The resignation came quietly, folded into a formal notice circulated by legal before noon. "He's stepping down effective immediately," the interim lead said during the call. His voice was steady now, practiced. "The investigation will continue." "Good," I replied. "And his assistant," he added, "reassigned." Legal answered from another line. No supervisory authority. No one celebrated. No one needed to. The company moved the way it always should have, carefully, deliberately, with consequences attached to decisions instead of people scrambling to explain them away. A week later, I met with compliance to review the revised safeguards. "We've stabilized operations," the director said. "Vendor contracts restored. Terminations reversed where required." "Keep the review active," I said. "Stability isn't a finish line. It won't be treated as one." That was the last meeting I attended. In the days that followed, messages arrived asking for guidance, approval, reassurance. I answered only what mattered. Clarity did more than presence ever could. I was never invisible. That had been their mistake. They looked for authority where it announced itself and ignored the kind that waits, observes, and remembers. I did not win by revealing who I was. Titles fade too easily. I won by letting them reveal who they were when they believed no one withstanding was paying attention. The building did not change. The people did. Conversations slowed. Decisions traveled farther before landing. Assumptions learned to check themselves. Before I closed the file for the last time, I wrote one note for myself and left it where I would see it again. Power does not require recognition to exist. It requires discipline to use, patience to hold, and the courage to act when silence becomes permission for harm. That was the lesson, not for them, for me.